Thank you very much. I was hoping to bring the sun from Mexico City. I failed you. I'm sorry. I feel like I never left. Like I'm back at, and this is my sounding. So, but thank you very much, Anne-Marie, and everyone at the Nieman Foundation for the kind invitation. Thank you, friends, colleagues, class of 2019, for this wonderful and humbling tribute. I bring you greetings from El Paso and Mexico City, the two places other than Lippman House that I've had the privilege of calling home. These are the places that have shaped me as a person and as a reporter. And first, let me say what an honor it is to be before you, to stand before you, not just in a program named in honor of Joe Alex Morris Jr., but on the shoulders of one of the most respected and courageous foreign correspondents. To the family and friends of Joe Alex, I'm grateful and incredibly humble, and I hope to honor his memory tonight. This tribute is not just about my work or me, but about the people who share the stories. It's about giving voice to the voiceless on both sides of the border. And it's about those who report in zones of conflict in Mexico and around the world, especially in the forgotten, misunderstood region that I call home, the border. So Anne-Marie, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, because I can't think of a more important time than today to bring attention to the border. I was asked to talk about the challenges, really the crazy times, of covering what I consider to be the epicenter of my homelands. Just to give you an example, and Anne-Marie kind of already went through it. In the last 10 days, I've covered everything from Central American families, overwhelming shelters in El Paso, or staying on top of the International Bridge, the building of a fence that federal authorities now conveniently refer to as a wall, a city that's still heartbroken over their hometown hero, Beto O'Rourke, losing the U.S. Senate race, and even rumors today of a possible Beto Kennedy ticket. I shouldn't be spreading rumors. I'm at the Lippman House. But it's pretty exciting when you think about it. I also just returned from Mexico City, where I interviewed people in the migrant caravan that's making its way to the U.S. border, where more than 5,000 U.S. troops await them. First, let me dispel some myths and offer some fundamental truth about me and the story that I cover. The border is not just a geographical place, but a mindset. The border is not a no man's land overrun by hordes of criminals in need of a wall to separate us from them. Undocumented immigration is at a historic low, although we're seeing a spike in Central American families arriving at the border seeking asylum. The border is a vibrant, booming region. Every day, $1.7 billion in trade crosses between Mexico and the United States. This means that the two sides have never been so intertwined, yet so misunderstood and divided. In my years as a correspondent, my job has mostly revolved around two things, both long-standing vices for Americans: America's insatiable demand for drugs and undocumented workers who serve as cheap labor. Mexicans are the enablers of America's charade. I'm also an immigrant who arrived in this country at the age of 6, the eldest of 9, who were once part of the United Farm Workers Union. We were part of a new wave of immigrants who benefited from the Immigration Nationality Act signed by President Lyndon B. Johnson in 1966 in the backdrop of the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island. We came through a neighborhood known as Chihuahuita in El Paso, the city that is the Ellis Island of the Southwest. Like my parents, I too came of age in the fields. It was there that I first began to dream of a career as a journalist. I was 13, and California had this ordinance that you had to be at least 15 to work in the fields. But we needed the money for school supplies, for clothing. We needed to work. My mother would make sure that I wore a large shirt, a hat, anything to make me look older. Never tell anyone that you're 13, she would remind me. One day, this TV crew came, and I don't know, I still think that reporters are pretty smart. They took one look at me and probably thought to themselves, this kid is not 15. They made a beeline for me, and much to my surprise, I answered every question, beginning with the most obvious one, the one my mother told me never to answer. How old are you? 13, I replied. And just like that, they found what they were looking for. An underage kid faced with questions that range from what's it like working in the fields without sanitation or without enough drinking water. I answered every question, and as they left, I remember being impressed, overwhelmed, that anyone was curious enough to ask me anything. Someone actually cared about how I felt about this, about that. Someone wanted to give me a voice. I was intrigued, I was inspired by this thing called journalism. My father had once been enticed by the United States by farmers who envisioned him picking every cotton field in West Texas, Arizona, and California. My mother picked endless rows of tomatoes, melons, and oranges. I, on the other hand, was lured by an editor, Frank Allen, at the Wall Street Journal in Philadelphia. He saw a change in America and the need for a more diverse newsroom. He recruited me, a bilingual, bicultural reporter, to go out and tell the story of my parents, our story, the story of millions of people on both sides of the border. As a young journalist, I dreamed of becoming a foreign correspondent because, yes, I too wanted to shine the light on issues that matter for both countries, and maybe even help build bridges of understanding between two peoples. But as I look back now, I realize that my job as a foreign correspondent is really nothing more than my love affair with Mexico, my attempt to reconnect with my roots and my language. I am not complete unless I'm telling stories with the foot in each country. Even though who I am and what I represent, the native and the outsider, is often met with as much rejection in Mexico as it is in the United States. I have spent years trying to shake the feeling that I am hopelessly American in Mexico and Mexican in America. Never fully Mexican, never fully American, often feeling less than one, sometimes more than two, depending on the moment. I have reported from a range of places, Cuba, under the rule of the Castro brothers, and have bore witness to the exodus of more than 1 million people. Central America, where people are still trying to recuperate from past U.S. conflicts, ongoing drug wars, driven by U.S. demand and U.S.-bred gangs. And I traveled to the coca fields of South America and other parts of the world. I've seen firsthand societies fall apart. And let me tell you, it doesn't take much for the institutions and the values that you believe are solid to begin to crack and crumble. It happens suddenly, even before anyone really realizes. I've seen leaders manipulate and magnify divisions, question election results, cry vote fraud, question the electoral system, manipulate the public through the media at the behest of the government. Lies become truth, truth becomes lies. The media is weaponized, reporters are suspect. I'm speaking about what I've seen throughout Latin America. Attack the press, imprison journalists, and when that's not enough, kill the journalists. In Mexico, journalists are threatened and killed by drug cartels and corrupt government officials, sometimes working hand in hand. It's hard to get answers or justice from my fallen Mexican colleagues. They are among the more than 240,000 people killed since 2007. 98% of those killings are unsolved and unpunished. What makes me different from my Mexican colleagues? I've long believed, and I still believe, it's my U.S. passport. On July 2007, I got a call from a trusted U.S. source asking me, "Where are you?" "In Mexico City, in my neighborhood of La Condesa," I replied. "Why?" "We have information that the Zetas plan to kill an American journalist within 24 hours, and I think it's you. Get out." At the time, the Zetas were the most vicious of the cartels, paramilitary men some of them trained by U.S. Special Forces. I felt the ground under me collapse, my legs weaken, the life in me sucked away. I ended up leaving and found a safe haven as a 2009 Nieman Fellow. I came here to try to clear my head, figure things out. I took classes in classical music, narrative storytelling, and was inspired to write a book by Anne Bernay, Connie Hale, plus 3 other Niemans. And if anyone's thinking about writing a book, this is very key. The key to writing a book is you need 3 Niemans, 1 Swedish and 2 Argentinians. And a whole community led by June, who's here, our Latin American, and Kalpana from India. In the post-Nieman life, I returned to Mexico. 3 years later, the man who had threatened me, the leader of the Zetas, a man known as 40, muerte, death, was captured. I got a call from the same U.S. source who said 40 has been nabbed. But hours later, nothing is official yet. You need to break the story or he might buy his way out again. I mulled over that for a minute and wondered and thought about Bob Giles, who was then the curator, and who would tell me when I was here, no story is worth your life. And I kept asking myself, do I want to open old wounds again? Do I want to rattle the feathers of a man who put a hit on my sores and later tried to go after me, the messenger? I wrestled with that question as I thought of my colleagues who probably had the same information in Mexico and couldn't do a thing about it. I thought about the privilege I have and the fact that whatever danger I may face, I simply head to the airport and return to Texas with my U.S. passport. I broke the story and it went viral. That night, I got a tweet from a woman who said simply, "This evening you have moved Mexico." The message was clear, reinforced, underscored. Truth matters. Truth is our best defense, our most important protection. Truth is our best weapon. And I tell you this story because I want to make one thing clear. I am by no means more courageous than any of my Mexican colleagues. As bad as my situation may sound, the danger I face really pales in comparison to what my colleagues in Mexico confront. And I've always wanted to believe that if something happens to me, someone somewhere, someone in this room will seek justice, that I will not be just another number, a faceless victim. These days, I'm not so sure anymore. Today, the President of the United States calls the press the enemy of the people. Facts have become fake news. Journalism is a target. Accountability, which is needed to maintain the core of our institutions, weakens and gives rise to tribalism. Given the response from the administration following the death of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, a U.S. legal permanent resident, I also worry about what has been the beacon of light for journalists all over the world, suddenly fading. Never in a million years did I expect to find myself as an American journalist at the Nieman Foundation appealing for the freedom and safety of American journalists at home. To stand here with CPJ and countless other news organizations in support of Jim Acosta of CNN, and to ask for justice for so many Mexican journalists, including Javier Valdez, is simply surreal. These are moments of deep self-reflection. As I look back today, I realize I have never been so unsatisfied with my ability to truly convey the importance of 2 countries to one another. I spent my years trying to believe that I could build bridges of understanding. These days, I feel more like a broken bridge, forced to fight lies masquerading as alternative facts, fear-mongering, race-baiting. Not long ago, there was a startling news that ISIS was on the border. I'm not making this up. Yes, my mother said, it's all over the news, ISIS is here. This must be serious, I thought, especially if the news has hit the Spanish language media. I watched that evening as the border was front and center on Fox News. ISIS was in Anapra, a suburb of Ciudad Juarez. The next day, my colleague and partner, Angela Cocherga, and I crossed the border and we went straight to Anapra to look for ISIS. We walked into a store, and there on the front page of Diario de Juarez was a headline, ISIS in Anapra. The kind shopkeeper assured me that they were nowhere in sight. He said, I can tell if newcomers are from Zacatecas, Durango, or Jalisco, just based on their accent. I would know immediately if they're from the Middle East. They stand no chance here, he added. I've already called my relatives back in El Paso and told them, don't worry, don't lose sleep, we have your back. I called the people responsible for spreading the fear, the rumor, Judicial Watch. And I said, hi, this is Alfredo Corchado of the Dallas Morning News, and I'm currently in Anapra with a colleague from television. Can you please give us the address where ISIS is hiding? Are you crazy, he responded, and scolded me for not taking the news very seriously. No, I'm just trying to verify the information. You've scared the crap out of people here. What is your information based on? Because if ISIS is here, no one will take this more seriously than people on the border. Intelligence, he responded. Great, so then you must know if you have intelligence. Can you elaborate? Did you even come here? And he responded, I spent much of my time on the border. On the Mexican side, in Anapra, the border, he said. The story ran, Judicial Watch threatened to sue us, and they haven't to this day. Yes, these are dark days on the border. We've gone from the pass of the North to a punching bag. We are the passage for people who travel through filled with hope on their way north. Some people leave behind pieces of themselves, from mementos to bones in the desert. Some die on their way to a better life, drown in the Rio Grande, succumb to sweltering desert heat, suffocated in 18-wheeler trucks in railroad boxcars. Others suffer unimaginable heartache, PTSD, parents separated from children, children separated from parents. Tornillo, just south of El Paso, has become Tent City, a temporary detention center for Central American teenagers. These scenes of separation, detention, and death haunt us as border residents and journalists. Their memories are a heaviness that we carry on the border, which has become the perfect piñata for politicians. Hit it, and sweet rewards are rising fear and poll numbers that go up and up and up. Hit it and watch the algorithms respond in kind. More clicks, more likes, more shares. Sometimes I wonder to what extent we in the media play part in whipping people into a frenzy as we report on a manufactured crisis on the border. I struggle with that question, as Anne-Marie said, at a time of dwindling international coverage, when budgets are smaller, newsrooms are tiny. At one point, the Dallas Morning News had the largest bureau of any U.S. newspaper. We had 12, 13 people that included drivers, translators, a security consultant, television, and print reporters. We're now down to one, me, and I cover both countries and the entire region. So what do we do? The answer to me is simple. We press on. We dig deeper for truth. We do more reporting, seek more facts, more humanity, to aim not just for the minds, but for the soul of readers and viewers. I'm obviously not the first or the last person to say this, but I believe it with all my heart now more than ever. There is truth, there are lies, there is fiction and deceptions, and it is our job to point that out, even when it seems that people don't care about facts anymore, or others refuse to listen. Over the weekend, I was at a sports complex in Mexico City with some 5,000 Central American migrants preparing to head north. I interviewed a Honduran man, Edwin Edgardo Hernandez, who talked about the reasons why he was making the journey. The same reasons that Germans, Irish, Italians, my own parents talked about decades ago. Jobs, poverty, a search for opportunity, for possibility, for safety. Weeks ago, Edwin said his former boss sent word to his community via recruiters that construction jobs awaited them and others to build stores like Walmart and Home Depots throughout the country. The kind of construction work he once did here in the United States, the very work that once helped him earn enough money to build a home back in Honduras, where he now lived with the pregnant wife, the same place where he now faced daily extortions from gangs. I thought of my own father, who once worked as a seasonal laborer when Americans needed people to pick crops and were so desperate for them that they made sure he got his green card because they wanted to make sure that my father would come back to work in a fickle country. A cruel irony. My father's story right before me was repeating itself. Edwin was headed north where troops awaited him, and a wall is supposed to stop him. He is the latest immigrant. When I asked him, Edwin, what do you want Americans to know? He thought for a second and responded, just tell them the truth. Thank you.